Imagine this, a cozy, small-town porch swing creaking gently in the afternoon breeze. A sweet, silver-haired woman sits comfortably, a knitted shawl draped over her shoulders. She's chuckling at a neighborhood child's joke, her laughter light and musical, almost contagious. With a twinkle in her eye and a warm smile on her face, she offers you a slice of homemade pie, the smell of cinnamon and apples wrapping around you like a hug. To the outside world, she's the embodiment of the perfect grandmother, gentle, nurturing, harmless. But behind that innocent facade lies one of the most chilling stories in American true crime history. This woman, known to many as the Giggling Granny, wasn't just a sweet old lady. She was a serial killer. A cold-blooded murderer who took the lives of at least 11 people, many of them her own flesh and blood. Husbands, children, a mother-in-law, even her own grandchildren, all fell victim to her deadly charm. Her real name? Nannie Doss. And while the world saw her as a harmless homemaker with a contagious laugh, what lurked beneath was far more sinister. Because Nannie didn't just kill, she laughed about it. She giggled while recounting her crimes. She found humor in horror. What would drive a grandmother to commit such heinous acts? What lies behind that sweet smile and infectious laughter? Buckle up, because the story of Nannie Doss is a twisted roller coaster through love, loss, poison, and laughter that echoes long after the grave. This is not just a tale of murder, this is a story about how appearances can deceive, and how evil can wear the softest, sweetest disguise. Welcome to the unsettling world of the Giggling Granny. Welcome to this deep and disturbing journey into the life and crimes of Nannie Doss, one of the most chilling figures to ever emerge from the annals of American criminal history. At first glance, she didn't look like your typical killer. There were no cold, dead eyes. No threatening presence. No ominous silence. Instead, Nannie was the picture of warmth and domestic charm, always ready with a laugh, a smile, and an offer to pour you a cup of coffee. But that smile? It masked something far darker. Beneath her jovial demeanor and signature, almost childlike giggle, lay a woman capable of unthinkable cruelty. Her laughter wasn't nervous. It wasn't shy. It was unsettling, an eerie soundtrack to the deaths of those closest to her. With each crime, she seemed to grow bolder, her grin wider, her laugh louder. It was as if she were in on a joke the rest of the world hadn't yet caught on to. She wasn't a shadowy figure lurking in the dark. She was front and center at church picnics, chatting with neighbors, reading romance magazines, and tending to her flower garden. Nannie was the kind of woman you'd trust with your children, your secrets, your life. And yet, those who trusted her most paid the highest price. Her case forces us to confront a terrifying truth: evil doesn't always announce itself with menace. Sometimes, it arrives with cookies and a chuckle. Nannie Doss is the embodiment of that paradox, a smiling monster hiding in plain sight. So as we begin this deep dive into her twisted world, remember this: not all serial killers fit the mold. Some of them might remind you of your own grandmother. But before we peel back the layers of Nannie Doss's life and expose the chilling timeline of her crimes, take a moment to sit with this question: what could possibly drive someone to such darkness? What force, emotional, psychological, or perhaps even something more sinister, compels a person to murder not strangers, not enemies, but their own blood? Their children. Their spouses. Their grandchildren. These aren't just acts of violence, they are deep betrayals of the very bonds that define human connection. Is it trauma? Mental illness? A lust for control? Or something deeper, something we may never fully understand? We want to hear from you. What do you think lies at the heart of crimes like these? Drop your theories, thoughts, and insights in the comments below. Let's build a community of curiosity, people willing to explore the shadows not just for shock, but to understand the human mind at its most extreme. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We've only just scratched the surface of this unnerving tale. There's a lot more to uncover, and trust me, it only gets darker from here. Nancy Hazel, later known to the world as Nannie Doss, was born in 1905 in the rural heartlands of Alabama. Her story, like so many twisted tales, begins not with bloodshed but with pain. From the very beginning, life did not deal her a gentle hand. Raised in a strict, joyless household, Nannie's childhood was shadowed by emotional and physical abuse. Her father, a controlling and domineering man, kept a tight leash on the family. Laughter was rare. Freedom was non-existent. Even school was a luxury she was often denied, forced instead into endless hours of labor on the family farm. But perhaps the defining moment of her young life came when she was just 7 years old, on a family train trip. A sudden jolt caused her to slam her head against a metal bar on the seat in front of her, a blow so severe that it left her unconscious for days. Though she survived, that incident would mark her for life. Years later, Nannie herself would cite that head injury as the beginning of her long battle with blackouts, mood swings, and what she described as episodes. While the science at the time didn't fully grasp the effects of traumatic brain injuries, we now know they can drastically alter personality, impulse control, and emotional regulation. It's a grim puzzle piece in the larger portrait of her descent, and then there was her escape, found not in therapy or support, but in the pages of cheap romance magazines. Nannie devoured them, clinging to their idealized tales of love, passion, and happy ending. For a girl raised in an environment devoid of affection, these stories offered a fantasy she desperately craved. But over time, her obsession with romantic ideals began to warp her sense of reality. Love wasn't something she learned from experience, it was something she absorbed from fiction. And when real relationships failed to live up to the storybook standards in her mind, her disillusionment grew toxic. By the time she reached adulthood, the damage was done. A battered childhood, a damaged brain, and a dangerous disconnection between fantasy and reality had fused into something volatile. Nannie Doss wasn't born a killer, but life had been quietly shaping one all along. The 1920s, a time of jazz, flappers, and sweeping change across America. But for Nannie Doss, it marked the quiet beginning of something far more sinister. Beneath the societal buzz of the Roaring Twenties, she was orchestrating a series of calculated, cold-blooded murders that would span decades. Her targets? Not strangers. Not enemies. But the very people who called her mother, wife, sister, and grandma. Her first known victims were among her own children, those she had once rocked to sleep, fed with trembling hands, and kissed goodnight. And as the years passed, her circle of death widened to include nearly everyone who dared to love her. For husbands, each one succumbing to mysterious illnesses. 2 grandchildren, taken far too young. A sister, a mother-in-law, and even her own mother, none were spared from the lethal touch of Nannie's affection. What made her crimes so terrifying wasn't just the body count, it was how effortlessly she concealed her intentions behind the mask of domestic bliss. Her weapon of choice? Arsenic, slipped with chilling precision into meals she lovingly prepared. A hearty stew, a piece of pie, a warm cup of coffee, simple comforts laced with death. She was a master of deception, using the kitchen not just as a place of nourishment, but as her personal laboratory of murder. By choosing poison, Nannie was able to maintain her facade, a devoted wife, a grieving mother, a tragic figure repeatedly touched by loss. She even attended the funerals, sometimes shedding tears, sometimes giggling under her breath. Neighbors pitied her. Friends brought her casseroles. No one suspected that the smiling widow might be the very reason behind the endless trail of caskets. This wasn't rage. It wasn't a single, impulsive act. It was methodical. Intimate. Poison allowed her to kill slowly, quietly, and without mess. And perhaps that's what made her so terrifying, not just that she killed, but that she did it with a smile, a spoonful of sugar, and the practiced ease of someone who had long since lost her humanity. It wasn't until 1954 that the carefully constructed web Nannie Doss had woven began to unravel. By this time, she had already claimed the lives of multiple husbands, children, and extended family, each death disguised as a tragic accident or illness. But her 5th husband, Sam Doss, would be different. His sudden and mysterious death raised a red flag that couldn't be ignored. Sam had been married to Nannie for just a few years, but he had already started experiencing severe stomach pains and unexplained illness. He'd fallen ill shortly after a hearty meal prepared by his seemingly devoted wife. And within days, he was dead. While Nannie went about her routine, mourning her loss with a well-practiced sorrow, the authorities started looking closer at his death. An autopsy was performed, and the findings were shocking. The cause of death was confirmed to be arsenic poisoning. It wasn't just a trace, it was a fatal dose, one that had been carefully administered over a period of time. For the first time, there was undeniable proof of foul play, and all signs pointed to Nannie Doss. The investigation was launched, and as detectives dug deeper, they began to connect the dots between her late husband's and the unexplained deaths in her past. With each revelation, the picture became clearer and far more chilling. When Nannie Doss was arrested, the nation was stunned. The image of the sweet, smiling grandmother, the woman who had cooked for her family and held court at neighborhood gatherings, was shattered forever. But it was what happened next that truly disturbed everyone who heard it. During her interrogation, as she sat calmly in the police station, Nannie Doss did not show fear, nor did she appear to feel any remorse. Instead, she recounted the details of her murders with unsettling nonchalance. And then, with an almost gleeful tone, she began to laugh, her infamous giggle rising in the sterile, cold air of the room. She didn't laugh out of nervousness. She didn't laugh out of guilt. It was a giggle that suggested something far darker, a twisted pleasure, perhaps even a thrill, in recounting her crimes. For the nation, it was the first time they realized just how deep the darkness ran within Nannie Doss. A woman who had appeared so harmless, so innocent, now stood as a chilling reminder of how evil can hide behind the most ordinary, even lovable, faces. And so, as we bring this exploration of Nannie Doss's story to a close, we're reminded of something fundamental about the world we live in. Evil can hide behind the most innocent of smiles. It can thrive in places we least expect, right under our noses, behind the walls of our own homes, in the hearts of those we love and trust. But it's also a call to action. A reminder to never stop questioning the narratives we build about others, to stay vigilant in the face of seemingly benign appearances, and to trust our instincts even when they seem at odds with what we want to believe. Thank you for joining us on this unsettling journey into one of the most haunting cases of American true crime. Nannie Doss's story is a reminder of the darkness that can be found in the most unexpected places. If this story has sparked questions, curiosity, or reflection, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We have more in-depth explorations coming your way, stories that challenge our perceptions and force us to confront the mysteries of the human mind.